Okay, The Normal Heart was a film rated TV mature, so it was an HBO film, about the early 80s AIDS epidemic that swept through the gay community. If you start watching this film, in the first 5 minutes, you'll know if you can sit through this film or not. They go to Fire Island. So, I've given you a lot of clues. HBO Film, TVMA, AIDS culture, 80s, Fire Island, gay. So yeah, they do this Mark Ruffalo's walking around because he ends up being your main character, even though the Netflix box has Jim Parsons as the main person they show on the box art. But there are multiple people who are the main pictures of box art, and I think Netflix chose that because Jim Parsons is one of the more popular people in this film currently. And Mark Ruffalo's walking around Fire Island, and he's walking past quite a few orgies. These are like full-on male nudity orgies. The nice thing is that he's kind of just like, he's walking like, and there's one, and he's walking like, It's like, and there's one, Which you can tell he's got this weird pseudo-disconnection from everything. And then, of course, when they come back, well, actually, then someone dies of what's referred as gay cancer. Because when AIDS first popped up, people didn't know what it was. So then enters Julia Roberts' character. Which I mentioned, lots of really strong acting. Mark Ruffalo is like a sine wave. He goes really good, and then he just goes to like almost unwatchable, to really good to almost unwatchable. And Jim Parsons is just, he has a moment where he just really has this fantastic speech, and then he goes back to him just being really good again. I think it's Matt Bloom. I want to say he was on White Collars. I've never seen him on any TV show. His performance wins awards, and when you watch his performance, you know why he wins awards. So Julia Roberts shows up, and she's a doctor treating members of the gay community because they have gay cancer, which we now refer to as AIDS. She doesn't know how it's transmitted. And this is where I've read other reviews and I finished watching it, and there are people who are entirely split as to how to look at this film. There are people who go, look at all the horrible things the government did by not providing money. Well, it wasn't that it was a gay thing. You can go back and look at how the government has responded to almost everything. There's always a lag period. Women's rights, civil rights, voters' rights. If you look, there's always a lag period. But she thinks it might be sexually transmitted, so she goes to one of the, just like a gay community, and it's kind of like, this could be sexually transmitted. And I was like, well, wait, so we shouldn't have sex? And that's entirely unheard of. One guy jokes about it, he's like, well, I'm late for an orgy. And it was like, and she's like, I'm telling you that having sex could be what's killing all of you. So you've got the community itself, which is being impacted by this. They don't quite know how it's translated, they don't quite know what it is. So they kind of brush it off. Until it becomes real to them and begins actually to affect them. By the time they go to the government at first brushes them off. Because there's not a lot of data, they don't quite know what to do with it, they don't quite know how to deal with it. Until it later becomes real, and then they start actually doing work for it. The film has multiple subplots. The Mark Ruffalo, I want to say it's Matt Bloom, or Mike Bloom. They develop a relationship, and that's a very, very strong moment in the film. That has a really great narrative going on with it. The Jim Parsons portion where he's trying to help with one of the community groups that they start doing has like hotlines to try and get information spread. All right, well that works. Yeah, they got just the right amount of pieces. I think the director was the same guy who did, I think it was American Horror Story. So he does have one scene that seems very out of place because it has almost a pseudo thriller horror vibe to it. nice piece of practicals, though, when it comes to showing all the weird lesions and boils that people get from having the gay cancer. So very powerful, very well done film. It does have moments where it becomes very melodramatic. I do think the film is, I want to say, like 2 hours, 10 minutes. It does seem like certain scenes go just, it's like, you've got your emotional impact, we're still there, you've now gone from that moment of, where you've hit the height of drama to, you're kind of overacting just a tad. And there's enough of those that I can understand people go, it does hit moments where it's very, very melodramatic. It's like it could have been tightened up. There was complaints, well, this should have been released in theaters. Had it been released in theaters, they would have had to remove a lot of what made it an HBO movie. It made it TVMA. And I think if you were to remove those scenes early on, it would have kind of changed the complexity of the film. I think that you almost needed to show what was going on before. You know, all of the, like the more said, like I'm going to an orgy now. They needed to show that portion. They needed to show this is the subculture that occasionally engages in a tremendous amount of high-risk sexual activity. They needed to show that moment, so that way then later when she goes, this could be transmitted through multiple high-risk sexual encounters. That way then those two moments be like, this is what you're currently doing, this could be what's killing you. It needed those two moments. Are they jarring? If you weren't expecting it, like I knew it was gonna be about gay culture, but the moment they're on the boat, I'm like, all right, dude. Where are they going? Fire Island. Dude. Man, how they found a lot of really good a lot of really in shape, jacked dudes. Wow. How did they do the casting for this? We're looking for people with no body hair and no body fat. How do you feel about wearing what looks like an eye patch? You're cool with that? Awesome. Your shot is you're just going to walk in the frame. We're not even going to show your face. You're just going to look at your junk. You're going to walk past and stare at your butt. That's your whole scene. Mark Ruffalo's going to check you out, and that's it. And I was like, man, they must have spent some time going, 6-pack is nice. 8-pack better. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of in shape people. Must have scoured a whole bunch of gyms to find these guys. If they're out there, playing volleyball, then one of them dies. And I was like, wow. Okay. But if he had the gay cancer, which everyone else has, these just horrible, like broken out boils and lesions, and just it looks like they got bruises all over their body, and section their skin are kind of like tearing open, and it just looks almost pseudo horror film like. This person has none of those symptoms. But they do a nice job just describing the disease, bits and pieces of it, and how difficult it is when you don't know anything about it. To one, get funding. Two, have people actually validate your ideas, because you've got a small sample size, you don't have a lot of time to work on it, and you really can't go, okay, you're sick, I gotta find out what you all have in common. Okay, this is just a thing that's affecting one subset of the population. We don't know how it's done. We don't know who it could have come from. It's not like these people were keeping like accurate tracks of who, what, when, and how. So, well done film. Very, very well done film. If you're squeamish about male nudity, this is a no. There are moments in where it's okay, I'll make the pun, where it's small, but it's there and it's graphic.